We're going to go live. It's going live. It's setting up your meeting for YouTube Live. This year is going to be huge. We're going to be YouTube stars. Are you guys ready for that?
We gotta come up with our memeable moments.
Are you ready to become YouTube superstars?
I was born ready.
I feel like I need to
RGB
catch up
keyboard working.
I feel like I need to catch up to your guys' beards.
Because that's what we're going to be. We're going to be YouTube superstars.
Wait, why am I listed as cat-based returns?
Yeah, usually you're signed in under your girlfriend's creds.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I didn't know I can move. I can swap our video feeds around.
Yeah, no, we've been doing trivia using Zoom. I guess we had to use our. We put our trivia team in. You change your name to your trivia team, and then they group you all together.
And finally, we're doing this Wonder Woman 1984.
Yeah.
It took us a while. It took us my idea was to do it on the 26th. So today's January 13th. But it's okay. Better late than never. Record. So I'm starting. Ready? All right. We're live recording. So Wonder Woman 1984.
Yes.
What did you guys think about the movie?
That was aight.
It's not as good as its predecessor. And I mean, there's certain things I like about it more than the predecessor, but the other movie I feel was a more complete, cohesive. This one just has more. I think I just have more issues with this one, despite the fact that it gave me the invisible jet.
By the way, we're having some beer. I'm having some pizza. So this is a fun podcast.
Tiny bourbon.
Yeah.
Bourbon. It's a party. Podcast party on YouTube. 1984. You know what? We always disagree. So I think that's gonna be a thing for 2021. We're always gonna disagree on everything.
Yeah.
No, not on everything.
I mean, I think that keeps it fresh. Otherwise, it would just be a circle jerk of us being like, yes, very good.
Yeah, it's kind of fun when people disagree a little bit. I'm gonna say I think you agree with me on this one, Ian, because from what we've already talked about the movie. Because I think this one was actually more fun. I had more fun watching this one than the first one.
That's where I disagree. I didn't have as much fun watching this.
I thought you liked this one better from what you said. Okay, so
I did not like it as much as the first one.
So you agree with Daniel that the first one was more fun?
Yes. This is actually my first movie for the podcast where I took notes. So I'm ready.
All right. What's your first bullet point?
Can we get the major ugliness out of the way?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, do you want to do good, bad, or ugly first? So
I want to go ugly first and get that out of the way.
What did you
I thought
guys
the special effects got kind
There's
of
no
lazy.
ugly, man. You have lots of good-looking women.
Well, what I mean by the ugly, now Ian's right.
Scenes.
I think I pointed this out on our
good-looking guys.
Yes,
Everything's beautiful.
Well, I want to say that the effects in this were oddly feel worse than the first movie, but I would say the ugly to me is the odd situation with Wonder Woman and the return of Steve Trevor and the ickiness of body snatching.
Yeah, the whole body snatching concept, I found myself in this weird uncanny valley of do I embrace the suspension of disbelief, or do I wonder what the fuck actually happened to this dude whose body is just now hosting Steve Trevor?
Yeah, I found it a little weird that they just sort of glossed over the fact that she then starts a relationship with a guy, someone and it's his body has basically been taken over by someone else. It was a little.
His body was being very well used.
Yeah, but without his consent. And so
I think that guy was so happy he just didn't know it.
I think especially the concept. So spoilers ahead with everybody making a wish. I found it really odd because I think the first internal question you have for yourself is, what would you wish for if you had a wish? And mine would be a time machine. right?
Right.
Like who wouldn't want to time travel? I feel like nobody did that. Nobody wished for things that were like truly beyond the realm of possibility. Nobody wished for
Where would you
superpowers.
go if you had a time machine? Would you go back to your own life, or would you go back to like the past of humanity? How would you use it?
I'd go all over the place. Assuming it functions
just
like a
like Back to the
DeLorean, I
Future?
would just use it willy-nilly.
Yeah.
Just like
I
Back to
mean,
the
I always assume that if there's, because just do the physics, backwards time travel seems to be impossible. But there's also, I feel like, the Nabokov principle, which is that like if you ever time travel backwards, then it doesn't matter because history has already been affected by you doing that anyway. So it's the self-consistency principle.
Right.
The idea, like, say you were to go back in time, you're not going to change anything because technically whatever you try to do already has been done by you at some point. And so,
yeah, I mean, I think the whole
Why I don't like-
concept of like multiple time paradoxes and like the properties of time travel can totally vary, right? There's like Terminator time travel, there's Back to the Future time travel. Like there's all kinds of different like properties.
there's dark
and
there's dark time travel, which I think subscribes to the self-consistency principle.
yeah, so that never came up, which I find weird that nobody on Earth ever wished for time travel or superpowers, right?
Well, somebody did.
Barbara was the only person who wished for superpowers, and even then,
Yeah.
she didn't knowingly do it, right? Like that's
Right.
part of the tragic irony. She's like, I want to be like Diana, like pretty strong and successful and confident. But nobody was like, I want laser vision. I want to fly.
Yeah, but they didn't like explore that part of it a lot. You know, they didn't show a lot of like what people were wishing for. So I think that's why we didn't see that. And I mean, I kind of understand it because it was a very long movie. It was 2.5 hours. So
And it was
they
a bit overstuffed.
That was
They-
definitely one of my complaints. Is the movie was super long, like too long.
Like I get
That was like the
point,
first
I get the
one, though.
point of
First
the
one is
inner
also
of the
2.5
prologue portion. I get why they had that in there, but I also felt like you could have had the exact same movie and not even needed that. I would have almost preferred the opening part would have been a montage of what she's done since World War I, because obviously we had World War II since then.
Mm-hmm.
And it would have been interesting to see her friendship with Etta Candy, because in the comics, they're best friends. From the previous movie, she was Steve Trevor's secretary. They're roommates. And it would have been interesting to build on that to step into then her friendship with Barbara in this one, which I felt like also was not given enough time to breathe.
Right.
I said this to other people. I kind of wish we didn't go full Cheetah in this one yet. Because while Cheetah is her arch nemesis in the comics, I kind of would have liked a movie of her. It's the rise and fall of her friendship with Barbara, but without going full on heel for Barbara, and just focus on Maxwell Lord, who honestly, Pedro Pascal killed it. Like he was
totally.
awesome.
I literally have that in my notes.
Yeah.
that he was good at it.
I don't know if it's gonna focus, but word for word, Pedro Pascal killed it.
Yeah. I just loved every minute. I love that she got to have the kind of ending she wanted for the first Wonder Woman, which is a non-fight conclusion to the main villain.
Yeah, definitely.
And while it maybe didn't stick the landing as well as some people would have liked, I appreciated the fact that they swung for the fences with that.
I think, yeah, I definitely agree with you on that. I think it was refreshing to see that, and it was also very true to the spirit of the superhero and like true to the spirit of the character, that, you know, she doesn't like absolutely obliterate the antagonist, you know, because Wonder Woman is all about being the ambassador for humanity,
Right.
and putting diplomacy first. And I think the ending reflects that very well.
Right. And
That's one of the things that I liked in this movie better than the first one, is that the first one I thought was very silly. Like it had a very silly villain with Ares. Not that this one is less silly, but I think the villains are, you know, they're not like, you know, kind of all over the place like Ares. You know, I think the villains are better constructed. Like we didn't even know who Ares was until that very last scene, almost. I mean, so that was kind of like the weak part of the movie.
Right.
Certainly the weakest, very important part of the movie. In this case, I like the villains. I think both of them were very compelling and kind of cool. You know, you had the cheetah was, very, very,
I just
I
kind
thought
of wish
the
that
arc, the
go ahead.
arc was pretty cool, and they had a good relationship. It was funny at first. It was kind of like you care for her even though it's a movie and they didn't have a lot of time to explore her character and develop her character, but you still get her arc and kind of care for her at the end.
Well, that's kind of why I kind of wanted more of a focus on that.
Yeah, but
and
still,
while
I still thought that we got both villains pretty well developed. Unlike the first one, they had one villain and he wasn't like well developed. I mean, I couldn't care less about the villain in the first one. This one,
Yeah.
I thought it was more balanced.
I will say that like and so hear me out on this.
Mhm.
Chris Pine as Steve Trevor is a gem, and his scenes with Gal Gadot are great. I understand why they brought him back because of their chemistry. It's something that is so electric from the first movie. I almost wish it wasn't in this one.
Oh, really?
And that they focused more on her friendship with Barbara. And
It would have been a different movie, though. I mean, it would have been good, but a different.
Right. But
yeah, I guess I see what you mean there. I think one of the complaints I had was the movie felt really predictable.
Yeah.
And I think Barbara's character and character development feels really predictable.
It just feels rushed.
Yeah, I mean, it feels rushed. It like I feel like it's a trope I've seen before.
Yeah. And I kind of felt like this is actually the same.
It's kind of hard for superhero movies not to feel a little bit predictable at this point because they're all essentially the same. We're seeing the same story again and again and again and again. So.
Well, to me, it's the same complaint. Maybe like I liked Aquaman mostly, but like I didn't like that they spent so much time on Black Manta as a secondary villain because it feels like they're putting too much in the movies. So they could be shorter, more focused, and you only need to focus on the one compelling villain, and you can set up the arch nemesis for the next movie. I mean, Cheetah is her arch nemesis.
I agree with you mostly, but I think it was well done in this. Like, it didn't bother me. There are some movies that it's really egregious, like Batman versus Superman. You didn't know what movie you're watching. I mean, it was.
Well, yeah. I mean,
what is that? Like, what is the story of this movie? Like, who are the villains? I mean, it's like all over the place. This one, it kind of felt structured, at least.
Well, I mean, yeah, you didn't have a random invocation of the monster that kills Superman from the comics. A very important villain coming in the late third act of a bad movie.
And he didn't even know where he came from. I mean, it's very odd. That movie was a mess, largely because, well, I mean, that wasn't even a movie. It was just like a series of vignettes. I
mean,
in this case, I agree with you. It's a little bit too much, and it was a very long movie, 2.5 hours.
Like I said, that was my main thing. As I started looking at because I like to sometimes go to a movie with an editor's eye and say, was this necessary?
Right.
And as much as Patty Jenkins has said that she had more freedom with this one, I have to feel like there was a producer who was like, well, you can't not have Chris Pine in this. Like,
yeah, I mean, I think Chris Pine is
that's
definitely
Hollywood.
A relatable character that
Hollywood
helps transition you from the first movie to the second. But I feel like the movie was really touch and go, and it felt pretty unengaging in the first couple of acts, and it just felt a little like slow, dodgy. It was hard for me to like stay focused. And then the fact that it's 2.5 hours really makes it feel like there's plenty of stuff that could be cut.
Yeah, and so that's sort of how I go about for a lot of these, and like a lot of them are like, we have these big budgets, we want to put in as much as we can, but sometimes it is less is more, and I think a lot of the stuff they put in sometimes can hurt it. And it is, and just I come back to the fact that it's weird that the effects seem to be worse than the first movie.
I didn't notice that though. Did you
Oh,
guys
I thought
think
there
that
were
was the
some
case?
pretty lazy effects.
Yeah.
Like the
I thought it
lasso
was so
twirl, I
beautiful.
thought was super cheap and chintzy.
Which one?
The
Like her-
lasso twirl and
Lasso twirling. The scene where Cheetah throws that dude into the side of the truck looked like it was a 10-minute job. I think the biggest complaint I have is like the feats of acrobatics looked really unnatural.
and not as impressive as in the first movie. Like they looked a lot better.
It like I don't know how to put my finger on it, but when you see it, it just looks a little bit off.
Yeah.
Like the movement just looks like it was like out of focus or like a little too superimposed.
Body mechanics.
Yeah, like the body fluidity.
Mhm.
Like the body mechanics, definitely.
That said, though, like to me, this gave me a lot of comic book giddiness with stuff. I mean, they gave her the invisible jet, something that might be one of the silliest comic elements that she has,
right.
but in a way that like I totally loved, like the fact that
I love that. I thought like I understand what you guys are saying, but I honestly I didn't feel the same way.
Right.
And I thought there were scenes that were very
fact-
beautiful, like the plane scene. I thought that was a very cool scene and very beautiful, like the plane with the 4th of July fireworks.
Yeah. No, that was a great scene.
The
That to
plane
me is,
becomes
like,
invisible. I thought that scene was like really gorgeous.
and that to me is a scene that like as someone who likes the comics a lot and someone who really liked the TV show where this movie actually pays a lot.
Oh
It was a
yeah, and
lot.
she shows up at the end, right? That's the
Yeah.
original actress. That was really cool.
Oh yeah. I saw it and like after watching the scene, I was like, this is definitely something that a more dedicated fan than I would be geeking out on.
Yeah, no, that's the original Wonder Woman
Yeah.
playing the character Asterius. She actually also appears in Supergirl as the president of the United States, and her name in the Supergirl is President Marsden, and Professor Marsden is the original creator of Wonder Woman. And
That's
so,
cool.
That's a nice
Yeah,
little
I thought
touch.
that was a really nice touch. I love that.
oh yeah,
scene.
I loved it. I had some friends of mine who didn't like it, and they were like, "It had no point." I'm like, "That doesn't matter." I mean,
Doesn't matter, man. It's fun.
It was
It's fun and
a
you're-
nod and a wink to fans that
Yeah,
you know.
I thought.
Yeah.
I thought it was a great.
It's just
scene.
like for the diehard fans, it's like a handing of the torch.
Mhm. And who knows? Maybe
There's
we'll see her
one
again in
thing-
the next movie. But
So Daniel, when was the original series set? That was the one thing that I was kind of wondering.
well, I mean, this isn't a direct tie to that. This is just an homage.
I know, but when was the original? You know, because that wouldn't
don't
make
know, like,
sense.
It's like that and the Hulk series that was on TV, or like I think we're around the same time.
Let me. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to find it now, but Wonder Woman series. Yeah,
It was
it was
yeah,
70s.
19 is the 70s. Yeah.
Yeah,
Linda
so
Carter.
she wouldn't be that old. So that's
I mean,
kind of like the problem.
The fact of the matter is, like, she's been such a supportive person for all of like women's superhero stuff. Like the fact that she lent herself to be in Supergirl, to be like, to be
Yeah.
up at the help. Well, actually, the show could stand on its own.
And
It was just-
you can do a little bit of a suspension of disbelief and say, okay, well, imagine the Wonder Woman series was set in like the 60s, or
Right.
the 50s, and
I want to address some complaints people have about that this movie seems to break continuity with the DC movies, because they're like, well, this makes it seem like the world should know Wonder Woman is. And I just want to say, I don't care.
yeah, I don't care.
Because you know what DC does well in the comics? Multiverse.
Yeah. And
These
who
movies do
cares
not
about
have
this
to connect.
continuity of the universe. It doesn't make any sense. I mean,
And
who cares?
when they do, and if they ever do decide to connect them, you can explain it away as the multiverse, and then it'd be cool to see like, oh, my world's slightly different than yours. This happened in your world, and like,
Which
you
is
can
actually
have-
what they're doing. That's what they said they were doing.
yeah,
Which is-
might as well just do it that
it's
way.
a cop out, but it's fine. I mean,
That way you can like have, if somebody wants to make another movie within this universe with like the Flash or Batman, sure, but or you could go to, you can flip between these. It's like the whole point that DC Comics did well was the multiverse. And
Yeah.
so like anybody who complains that there's no, that, like, I think that somebody said that, like, well, Marvel does it this way and they've been so successful. I'm like, okay, sure, but those are boring. They're gonna.
I'm so bored of Marvel movies.
I mean, if I wanted to see a movie that has a lot of viewers that people like, I mean, it's like, I could go watch a bunch of Fast and the Furious.
I mean,
movies,
out of all the new Marvel movies, the only one I care about is probably, like, I don't even know, man.
Actually, I'm kind of excited for WandaVision from Disney.
Well, yeah, by far that one is the most interesting. But I was trying to think the movies. That one is the most interesting. I would say Black Widow maybe out of the movies, because I wouldn't say Spider-Man is Marvel anymore because Sony is making those. Yeah, so out of the Marvel ones, probably Black Widow. The other ones.
But yeah, to go back to Wonder Woman, like that was like, I saw there were people who were complaining about the connectivity, about like the stuff not related. And I'm like, at this point, I don't care.
This is a movie about Wonder Woman. I mean, like, how serious do you really want it to be?
Right. And if they ever do want to connect them, you can just do one of the most seminal crossover comic book arcs of all time, the Crisis on Infinite Earths, where they end up collapsing all the multiverses into a shared continuity at some point. Like,
that would be cool.
Actually, they did that on the TV series. They had their own Crisis on Infinite Earths and on all the CW TV shows. Wow. And they crossed over even with the DC Universe shows.
I hate those shows, but I know you guys like them. So,
and they crossed over with like some of the ancient like other DC shows. They actually had Burt Ward from the original Batman TV show with
oh wow,
they had him show up, and in that they had.
I used to love that show when I was a kid. I used to love the really cheesy Batman show.
The ultimate fan servicey thing that I've ever seen has been the Crisis on Infinite Earths thing they pulled off in the CW. I will forgive anything they ever do with that series for giving me that. Like, and if they pull it off on the movies at some point, I'll be happy. I think they want to do something similar with The Flash. We'll see.
The movie or the show?
Well, the Flash movie supposedly is going to be based off of Flashpoint, which in the comics.
Yeah, I think we've talked about this.
Yeah.
Before. No, I think, yeah, I don't know. If they do it well, I guess. I'm excited for the Suicide Squad. Yeah. That movie looks really good, but you guys didn't like the first one. I kind of liked it, but that movie looked amazing in the trailer. So there is a danger that Suicide Squad is just like a really cool concept, but kind of difficult to pull out.
Skeptical of Suicide Squad. People are going to have to tell me this movie is like impeccable for me to even give a bother.
I'm excited for the game, the Rocksteady game. Did you see that?
Which I'm also excited about. I'm excited about all the
Suicide Squad versus the Justice League.
That looks really good
it's
too.
Basically, like, I think Superman goes bad or gets mind controlled and whatever, and so the Suicide Squad is tasked to take him down, and it's Rocksteady that did those. I think that's a really games.
Cool idea. And the Batman games are pretty good. So,
well, the topic of Superman losing his faculty and becoming bad is always one of the more seminal storylines they can put. Bruno, as you watch the Batman animated TV series, also watch the Superman one, because eventually they get to a whole point about what would happen if Superman did go bad.
There's a crossover.
Well, there is a crossover, which does Batman v Superman better than the movie ever did. It's the world's finest crossover.
Okay.
Where they argue over differences in philosophy.
I should watch the Superman series. I think they have it on HBO as well.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Like, it's
you know what I like about those shows, that I can just like watch them in the morning, and I don't need to like, because with Netflix shows, I get like, I start one episode and then I want to watch the whole thing, so I kind of have to commit to it.
Yeah, we've kind of lost the whole standalone episode
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
But with cartoons, I can just watch one cartoon in the morning and it's fine. You
yeah.
know, and that's
Yeah,
what's cool about those
everything
shows.
everything has become a lot more serialized.
Yeah, like you. Yeah, Netflix has a bunch of amazing shows, but you have to commit to spending 10 hours watching it because
Again, why I'm okay with
different
movies being
series.
more standalone. You don't need to watch um, Batman vs Superman to watch Wonder Woman.
Right.
Yeah,
You know, you don't need to watch. You
thank
just
God. I don't want to watch Batman versus Superman again.
and
Thank God.
you don't need to watch
But
the
I
other.
do want to watch Justice League, the new version, to see if it's a little bit better than the original. I'm curious.
I have a feeling it might be worse.
I kind of think it's probably going to be worse too.
But
I'm super curious. Now I need to watch it because
I mean, the fact
I'm curious.
I just like they put so much into it. Like, I just don't get like you want to build up to the greatest DC villains right away. You want to have Darkseid show up when you only have like 5 movies in your universe. He is the ultimate end villain for
Kind
DC
of a mess.
Comics. Like, he is literally,
Zack Snyder kind of messed the whole thing up.
I just don't get like how you already go, when you haven't done interesting villains that are in the like Superman has some interesting villains. No one's done Brainiac. Like,
Yeah.
although
I feel like Batman especially has got some fantastic villains, if not that being like one of the best qualities of the Batman comics.
yeah, but like they don't even tread on some of them. Like there's a show, Bruno, watch Krypton if you want a decent DC show. They actually do Brainiac.
That looks bad, man. That looks really bad. That show looks really bad.
It was actually surprisingly good.
Was it?
Yeah.
I don't know about that.
But like they actually did a live action Brainiac, and I was super happy about it.
I watched Gotham and it was a different time. It was like 5 years ago. I was a little bit more forgiving. Look, I watched Gotham. I watched Arrow. I watched The Flash, and I watched a lot of episodes of all those shows. Back then I thought I had like lower standards. I was excited about those shows, but
yeah.
I mean, this was before Daredevil. I think Daredevil changed everything.
Well, Ian, if you ever want to watch a decent adaptation with a decent Brainiac, but like I just don't get why they never done a Brainiac. Why in Batman they always return to Joker, Two-Face, and
I mean, because it's like the villains that everybody knows. I think that's why I think it's like it's a fear of the writers that they're going to do something too obscure and like too niche.
That's what I like about Marvel. That's the one thing I like about their shows is that and movies is that they're so confident that they will just throw whatever at you. It doesn't need to be Spider-Man anymore. It can be
right. Well,
but I think like
it's not
TV
even
shows
Iron
do a better
Man.
job with their villains, at least.
It's not even Iron Man. Like it's at this point they'll just throw Guardians of the Galaxy. No one had ever heard of Guardians of the Galaxy before, and they make this like $100 million movie. Right. That's kind of cool. I think DC should go that route, but not yet, because they still have to give us like the main guys. They haven't even given us a Flash movie yet. They haven't given us a Green Lantern. I mean,
well, they gave us a bad Green Lantern, but
man, yeah,
they gave us a few.
But so give us a new Green Lantern.
Ryan Reynolds has too many superhero roles. He's not allowed any more.
I just the way I look at it is that it's a shame that like they don't have confidence. Now, granted, some people might say that one of the Flash's arch villains is a super sentient telepathic gorilla, and you might think that's too silly. Although he's actually fantastic, like when done correctly.
That is kind of silly, but whatever, Just do.
I mean, his actual arch villain is actually super scary, and so. But like they'll probably rely on him. But like you got to realize that like every one of these superheroes is different for their own reasons. The Flash has a rogues gallery.
And Guardians of the Galaxy has a talking raccoon and a plant.
Right.
That is a person, sort of.
But my point being with the Flash is that he's actually got a lot of villains that aren't scary. They're just higher end petty crooks, and the relationship the Flash has with them is a different dynamic than like Batman has with his rogues gallery of psychopaths, you know. And so that dynamic, that's why you can do something different. You have a different dynamic with the different types of villains that these people have, you know. Aquaman has a very personal relationship with a lot of his villains, particularly with the ones we've already seen in the movies. And so, and with Wonder Woman, like the personal relationship is pretty heavy there with Barbara. And I'm hoping, I mean, they're obviously going to bring Barbara back because Barbara was the only one in this movie who didn't renounce her wish at the end.
I think, but she's kind of done. Like her character, the interesting thing about her was that she was going to become Cheetah and that she was the villain, but
she didn't renounce her wish, so she still technically has the power. She's just no longer feral like Cheetah. It could have a movie where she tries to recapture those old abilities, and that's a subject of a lot of Wonder Woman comics. Is Barbara Minerva's search for power and her path to it.
Okay. Well,
again,
maybe.
why I kind of wish they had left her for a third movie, or left the full heel turn for a third movie.
Yeah.
You know, that's like but again, it's why I kind of wish they did that with like Aquaman as well. They had Black Manta in that, and
man, but that's such a good movie though. Aquaman is like the perfect. I honestly, I was in the camp that, and this was now
I like Aquaman. I like Aquaman. I just feel like you didn't need Black Manta.
I feel that I was kind of ignorant because everybody made fun of Aquaman. I thought that he was so ridiculous. Like you could never make like a.
No, he's a fantastic comic. Like it's one of the best comic series. Seriously.
Well, but now I think the brilliant thing that they did is that they turned Khal Drogo into Aquaman, and then it's impossible for you to have Khal Drogo. That dude is like scary to look at.
All right, so
like,
Aquaman got a bad rap. Aquaman got like a bad rap for the old super.
Like a super handsome man, and he's very scary at the same time. And he's like he's like the very good looking cousin of The Rock. You know, like he's like super cool, and you can't make fun of that dude. You know, like first of all, you're scared that he's gonna beat you up, but also like he's way too cool for you to make fun of him. So you can't make fun of him. And then you have Aquaman as a cool, and also he has that Pacific/Hawaiian vibe, which goes very well with Aquaman.
Well, I will say that Aquaman as a character got a bad rap from the old Super Friends cartoon show where he was always riding a seahorse. Everybody laughed.
I think Aquaman has perpetually been made to be like the joke of like the Justice League, which I totally disagree with, because even if you watch like the Justice League cartoon series, Aquaman's story arc is so sick.
Yeah. Well, and it's just to say that like underwater is freaking scary. Like that's, and like there's a lot of.
I like the fact that they turned it into like a horror movie almost, you know?
Yeah.
And now they're going to make the spin-off, which is sort of a Aquaman horror movie. I think it's cool, man, that they do like these crazy things.
Right. And so there's ways to lean into, you know, and I mentioned this before, and I feel like this movie for Wonder Woman 1984 does a good job of leaning into the ambassador of humanity bit that, you know, you talked about. And so this why I still appreciate it, despite like the reservations I definitely have over what they had in this movie. I still come back to the fact that it's so weird that this movie had all these delays and they didn't edit it. I feel like, or the effects with all this time, despite all the good things I take from it. Again, you know, Invisible Jet, Wonder Woman transitioning from the version of her that doesn't fly to the version that does in a very, I feel, emotional way. And, you know, a lot of elements that I personally love as a comic book fan, and just a couple of things that like, it's weird that it came out that way.
Yeah. There are a lot of things I think that were done very well with this movie. Like, the emotional range for Diana was really good, and like the development felt authentic. Like you can feel the character developing and changing, and it's easy to relate to, and it doesn't feel like any sort of it doesn't feel forced. Um, I definitely think they're doing a good job of representing all of these characters' ethos very well in all the DC movies. So I'm super excited to see that, and I think that's going to be their best path towards a valid reboot. Um, Especially with keeping, like the fans pleased, as long as it stays true to the spirit of the superhero. I think people will be accepting of it. One thing that really caught my eye, and I feel like this is going to be a little controversial to cite the movie for, but I feel like it's still pretty valid, is the streaming quality was really bad.
Yeah, this has been my issue with HBO Max, is that it hasn't worked all that great sometimes. And I found while watching this, it like stuttered, like
So
at least a handful of times.
I didn't have any stuttering issues, but my complaint is with like the compression and the quality of the file that was served.
Mm-hmm.
And
that might have affected how we viewed the visual effects too.
Well, yeah, for sure. But I feel like, especially in the age of movies being on this like delay in production, I think Hollywood and the movie industry is going to be at this point where movies are going to release direct to streaming services for most of 2021. And this might be a thing that like doesn't go back to normal. Like movie theaters might actually just die. And
I hope not, man, because I
hope not too. But I think considering the fact that consumers have shown that they're willing to pay premium to get a movie directly on streaming service as quickly as you would get it in theater, like the market's going to take that. So like with Mulan on Disney Plus, it was what, $35 to buy a ticket for the movie.
Yeah, but HBO Max showed what they can do, and Disney now. I don't think they can charge $30 for a movie anymore.
Well, they can, because they did, and people bought it.
Well, they didn't. They didn't do it with Soul though. With Soul, because they had to compete with Wonder Woman, so they released it for free. So I don't think they'll go back to that $30.
But I think for at least the next 6 months, if not for all of 2021, it's going to be a huge selling point for streaming services to say that, we have access, or we're going to be releasing, blockbuster movies on our streaming service when they would have come out in theaters.
That was Warner Brothers' expectation, and it turned out to be it was a good bet. That's because they were struggling with HBO Max, because also they did a very bad job, because HBO Max, is a fantastic streaming service, but they marketed really badly, and they completely screwed up the whole release, because also they didn't have it on Roku, they didn't have it on Amazon, so most streaming devices actually couldn't even get it, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, but in terms of like the file quality, I felt like the movie was too compressed, and compared to watching like a 4K Blu-ray movie, because I watched the movie in 4K on an Apple TV, what you would get on like a Blu-ray, like a 4K Blu-ray, this was definitely several notches down in terms of quality, and I feel like it's very dishonest for them to cut that corner. So it's hard for me to hold that as a mark against the movie, but
if HBO
considering
Max
this is a
listen to Ian.
Yeah.
Actually, if you pay him enough, he might even work for you if you're really lucky, and you ask nicely.
Work is a generous term.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, like if you pay him like $200K a year, and he doesn't need to work a whole lot, but he just tells people what to do.
I'll be on the payroll.
Yeah, and you'll just you have to tell them what to do. Like make sure they get their shit right.
It's called being a product manager or a project manager.
There you go. So if you're watching this,
I do wonder how much
send us a message.
Experience was due to the HBO Max streaming service. I have found the sound has been a bit of an issue using HBO Max as well. Like I have to really fiddle with my settings to make sure things sound well enough.
Right.
Which has been weird for me.
That's probably a matter of time, though. I mean, it's a new service. I mean, Netflix had like years to get it right, and they probably still need to improve some stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my complaint
still
holds true for Netflix based on the quality of some things I've seen. I think Netflix has a better, I don't know if they're just using like a better compression stream or if they're using an H.265 codec or what, but I think Netflix has definitely gotten that down better.
But they've been doing it for 10 years. HBO has been doing it for a lot less.
Right.
Well, it's true that they had HBO HBO
right.
Now before.
I'm still listening, but I'm tending to my chicken.
Oh yeah, do the chicken thing. It's fine. But yeah, I didn't notice that, but yeah, I don't pay attention to that as much as you guys.
Stuff like that just always bothers me when you get that little bit of like weird graphical glitch, or the sound quality is not quite up to stuff now.
Man, I spent so much of my youth just watching movies on PCs and shitty illegal streaming thingies.
Yeah, I mean, I spent a good portion of my adolescence downloading and watching movies in like widescreen 480 and watching them on an iPod video
and waiting for stuff to buffer, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that when I get something like HBO Max, that you have like all these beautiful movies and shows and everything is available and you can just click on it and you don't need to wait for anything. I mean, I'm just like, woo, I can't really.
Yeah,
but I mean,
it's the future is now, old man.
I do wish I would have had the opportunity to see this in theater.
Yeah.
Well, he did, but because you're a smart guy, you didn't. But it's out there in theaters.
Oh, they released this on theaters?
Oh yeah, that's what's so cool about it.
Yeah.
That this is a movie that.
Dude, I didn't know theaters are even open right now.
Yeah, this is a movie that is out in theaters, and it actually made a bunch of money for COVID. This was the biggest movie since COVID started by a considerable margin. So this was a huge. I mean, in a normal time, this would have been a $1 billion movie most likely. But which I mean makes you think maybe they should just wait until they release these movies, because how much money are they losing?
I mean, there's a lot of movies though that they're still waiting. I mean, the fact that we're going to get Dune in the same format is going to be interesting.
But at the same time, yeah, maybe you just can't. Well, for us fans, I mean,
I don't mind. I'll watch.
I mean, this is great. This is the best. We're getting to watch. We're getting the option to go to the theater if we're stupid. Since we're not stupid, we get to watch it on HBO Max for free the same day. I mean, it's literally the best outcome that we could hope for in this situation. They could even like if they were doing what I suggested, we wouldn't even be able to watch it because they would just keep the movie for a year. So
I have a small interesting observation about Wonder Woman 1984.
What's that?
They called it Wonder Woman 1984, so they couldn't call it Wonder Woman 2 because then it would look like World War II.
Oh yeah.
Well, one of the little like things that I just thought was like fun and neat was the juxtaposition of showing the 80s as the future.
Yeah.
Right. Because we always look back at the 80s as like nostalgia and like we look at Stranger Things and we're like, oh man, remember that, and like you hit the member berries feelings. Yeah. But it was cool to have them play off like the entire 80s as being the future.
Right.
I think that was one of the better qualities of having Steve Trevor play such a prevalent role.
Dan, now I'm kind of bummed because of you, because you suggested that would have been perfect. Why did they not do WW2?
Well, because it would have been the abbreviation would have been WW2 for World War II, but it wouldn't have been during World War II, and
but it would have been confusing. It would have screwed them on search engine optimization.
Yeah. No, but they should have done it in World War II. That should have been the sequel. It would have been perfect. Well, you do WW2, and it's the new Wonder Woman movie, and it's set during World War II.
That's why I kind of wish the opening prologue was the years that Wonder Woman spent after World War One, leading to 1984, including showing whatever
I,
efforts she had
no,
done during
now
World
I'm just
War Two.
pissed off because that should have been the movie. It should have been during World War Two.
Um,
You messed up the movie for me. Thank you, Dan.
Ruined.
I want to address Pedro Pascal as Maxwell Lord a little bit more. So
He was so good, and this was like fantastic to see him at the end and see like his redemption be with his son, and to just like,
it was fantastic.
Favorite part of that movie.
The one thing I didn't get is why
his
son was like a completely different ethnicity. He looked like I don't even know, like Indian or something like that.
I mean,
it was a little bit weird. Like, is that because Pedro Pascal has like a Hispanic background? It just seemed like a little bit off, though.
I mean, I wasn't bothered by that so much. I actually really appreciated.
I wasn't super bothered. I just thought it was kind of weird.
Yeah, I appreciated that they gave an interesting, compelling story with a redemption arc. There's you can have some nitpicks over the fact that he's not really related that much to the character from the comics, but like that's what you're allowed to take creative license with the character. And I kind of like how instead of having Maxwell Lord be a super successful businessman, they actually had him be like almost a con man, like a guy who is,
not really almost. I think he was essentially a con man.
Well, I think in his mind he wasn't, but
Yeah, true. Yeah.
And actually the other businessman he ends up like taking all of his money from, Simon Stagg, is another like villainous CEO, like businessman from the comics as well. I liked how that's again another little tidbit stuff, how they included that in there. And so I really appreciated him in this role. I do believe that they sort of glossed over a lot of the stuff related to the stone and his abilities, but his abilities actually sort of have shades of the comics. In the comics, Maxwell Lord is a low-level telepath, or he can influence people's thoughts. And so he does that to get very close to the Justice League, and in fact is a benefactor to them until he reveals that he's a villain. I mean, there's many years where he's actually seemingly to be an ally to the heroes when he turns out to be a bad guy much later on. And I think he even causes the death of the Blue Beetle, like one of the Justice League, like he kills the Blue Beetle. And so the shades of giving people their wishes, like manipulating their emotions, I feel like plays a lot off of his.
I love how you know all this stuff, Dan.
I'm giving some context to it because like some people would say, oh, that's not really Maxwell Lord. I'm like, yeah, it's not the comic book version of it, but I could totally see some writer doing a version of that in a similar mode in comics. So sometimes they reimagine characters, and I felt like this was a very creative reimagining of his role. And a person who sees himself as a hero who manipulates people and uses their thoughts against them. And this is one that definitely used people's desires against them, as a roundabout and overly glossed explanation away from it. But the shades of that, again, it just appeals to me, on a certain level. And obviously there are going to be comic book fans who hate it because it's not a perfect adaptation. But, I just want to give that context to him. In addition to the fact that Pedro Pascal just absolutely nailed. I mean, anytime he was on the screen, you just on to him.
I really like Pedro Pascal. I think he's really cool. He's a very likable guy, even when he's a villain. He was like my favorite character in the movie, and he was a villain.
Yeah. I mean, I liked him in The Mandalorian. I was like, he's good as Mando. But seeing him in this, I was like genuinely impressed.
Yeah,
I was like, oh no, this guy has got like
in
talent.
Mando. It's incredible that we do like him in Mando, because he plays like a third of the character. Like that. I think he only plays the character like a third of the time. The other
I feel like we're gonna get less of him under the helmet going forward in that, at least.
What do you mean?
Like I think they're gonna play. I think he's gonna start playing the role without the helmet as much. He's not
Without the helmet? Yeah, it's yeah. I mean, you're probably right.
It's
Yeah,
probably
but
time for that.
yeah,
like
but when I watched that documentary on Disney Plus that they're showing how they made the show, yeah, like a lot of the time it's not him. It's I think it's two other dudes. So they kind of like rotate, and Pedro Pascal is the guy that talks, but when the scenes that he's not talking is actually different guys playing him.
Yeah, I will say that
they have like a gunslinger type of guy, and they have like a martial artist doing the fight scenes.
Yeah, and I would say that like I feel like it's still an appropriate reimagining of the Maxwell Lord character, but as a comic book nerd, I will say that I would have equally been okay with this being a version of another Wonder Woman villain, Felix Faust, who is himself like an evil wizard. And so there's shades of that as well. And maybe they kind of like did shade, they combined a little bit. I was okay with whatever, but like, I was just really happy that again, they went with this character as a villain too, because it also, that is not necessarily a deep cut to the comics, but it's definitely reaching in and not trying and at least making him the main villain, when I think most people would pretty much say that they really only know Cheetah as a Wonder Woman villain. And at least if you're a casual fan.
I didn't even know Cheetah was like a Wonder Woman villain. And this is kind of one of my like minor complaints with any superhero movie, is that I don't think they do a good job explicitly putting a name to the supervillains. And I don't know if that's like by choice or by licensing issues, a la like the Scarlet Witch and like Spider-Man versus like Sony or what. But
and
I was just okay, Barbara's evil now. I was like, oh shit, it's Cheetah.
I think unless you're Daniel, most people won't really know these people, these characters.
This is again,
Wonder Woman is very famous, but the villains are not. I mean, nobody really knows these villains.
And that's maybe a little bit of an issue with the fact we haven't gotten a lot of media with these characters. Like, I think you pretty much would only know these if you had watched like all of the Justice League animated series, like stuff.
Which I haven't. I watched some when I was growing up, but
and that is maybe a structural problem with that. And
I mean, famous villains are like the Superman villains or the Batman villains, but Aquaman, Wonder Woman.
That's because we've had so many movies and media.
Exactly. There's how many Batman movies are there? There's been like 10. This is the second Wonder Woman. I mean, until recently, there were no Wonder Woman movies.
Right. To most people, the most famous Superman villain is Zod. And so, of course, we've gotten him twice now as a movie villain.
Yeah, he's been in 2 movies, yeah.
Whereas, and Lex Luthor, of course.
But Lex Luthor, yeah, I mean, he's by far, everybody knows Lex Luthor.
Right, but there's other compelling villains. I keep coming back to why the hell do we not have a Brainiac, a movie where Brainiac was the villain? It offers.
I don't know that dude, and I grew up watching Superman comics, cartoons, and reading.
You don't know Brainiac?
I forgot a lot of. It's like half of the stories are with Lex Luthor, if you think about it.
But Brainiac is perhaps like outside of Lex Luthor and Zod is probably the third most important Superman villain.
Like, Brainiac, I don't remember. No, I mean,
watch Superman animated series. They do a good job of reimagining them.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, for most people, even people that grew up reading some comics like me, I mean, what you remember the most is like the most recent stuff, and that's usually like movies and stuff.
Right, and I guess Wonder Woman, a lot of her villains usually relate to the Greek gods and stuff. Like, I mean, she obviously has a lot of encounters with Hades as well as a villain. Although the first movie kind of sets up that the Greek gods are all gone except for Ares.
Yeah, apparently Ares killed everybody else.
Although there's been a lot of rumors that they've been wanting to do Sean Bean as Hades.
Sean Bean.
Yeah. I'm like, and every time someone brings that up, I was like, oh god, that'd be so good.
They should capitalize on the Hades fever. Everybody's talking about Hades.
Well, Sean Bean is Hades. There was once a rumor that like the villains in the next Wonder Woman movie were supposed to be Sean Bean as Hades, and then Eva Green as Circe, who's like a sorceress and very steeped in Greek,
Lannister.
Yeah, very steeped in Greek mythology lore and like sort of like this temptress. And so like I was excited about that, and maybe they'll go that way, but I guess they're gonna probably just bring back Cheetah. But that would be actually Sean Bean as Hades would be a way to, because he's got power. He's got obviously the powers of a Greek god. She could make a deal with Hades to get her powers back. That'd be there. I wrote the central conceit for the.
We did it, Reddit.
I did it.
Let's wrap it up. Let's wrap it up because we've been talking about it for a while now.
Yeah.
And then we can keep talking about nerdy stuff afterwards. But if anyone actually watches the podcast, hopefully someone will.
Yeah.
It's been a while now, so
that'll be my thing now. When I have figured out something for the sequel, I'm gonna be like, I did it. I figured it out.
You gotta post it on Reddit and then go back to it when it happens and cite it, and you'll end up on best of.
What are the final remarks, guys? Like, any final observations about Wonder Woman 1984?
I liked it, but I'm still a little disappointed by the execution on the return of Steve Trevor and the use of another man's body. I have an issue with it. The effects and the movie being a little overlong and overstuffed. But overall, I still enjoyed the ride because it gave me a lot of high points.
I enjoyed it. I think I enjoyed it more than you guys, or maybe. I would say, yeah, I enjoyed it a little bit more than the first one. But it's also true. There's one thing though. I watched the first one in the theaters, so this was my second time watching it. Mm-hmm. So maybe that's why also I enjoyed it a little bit less. Because the second time you watch a movie, it's not quite as fun, So
I don't know. The third time I watched the Wonder Woman, which was for our last podcast for the first one, I actually ended up liking it even more.
So maybe I don't know. But I don't know. I like the 1984 thing, even though now I like your idea, Daniel. I think World War II, that would have been perfect. World War II.
Again, I really only want that to be. I want that to be part of like a montage of seeing like her involvement in the years.
No, but I think it should have been the whole movie. World War II, Wonder Woman 2. I think that would have been perfect. And also, World War II is very cool. I mean, unless it's you focus on the bad stuff, but that's a different kind of movie altogether. Like if you do like a Wonder Woman movie, I think you could have like some cool war scenes, and like some cool weapons and stuff, like video game style,
right?
Comic book style,
Ian,
like Captain America
thoughts?
movie. But
Bruno, you're still talking, or
I
interrupted?
No, it's fine. It's fine. No, I was gonna say something, but actually I forgot. I went on this tangent.
Final thoughts. The movie was aight. It was aight.
It was aight.
If someone was like, "Would you watch it again?" I'd be like, "Yeah." I think it's good enough that I'd be fine with a trilogy.
Oh yeah, come on, man. We gotta get a.
Yeah, they'll finish it up. I think it's been greenlit too.
Yeah, I mean, I think it definitely could have, done better, but yeah, like not the worst thing ever.
Yeah, I mean, there's been plenty of much worse superhero movies. Plenty of much.
It pisses me off that Superman didn't get a sequel though. Wonder Woman got a sequel, but Superman didn't. I actually prefer Man of Steel. That was a pretty cool movie.
Well, technically, Batman v Superman is like a pseudo sequel.
Yeah, but that's shit, man. That's not even a real sequel. Like, I want a Man of Steel 2. Like, Wonder Woman was a good movie. Yeah, I want a sequel, but Man of Steel, I would also, and Henry Cavill as well. I mean, I want to see him as Superman again.
Well, hopefully they do, and they do Brainiac. Give me
Hopefully.
Brainiac.
Yeah, there you go. We don't need General Zod or Lex Luthor anymore.
Or Toyman. Give me Toyman. Yeah, Toyman.
We've seen them like 100 times. So yeah, give us a different villain.
Parasite. Like, these are like they're decent Superman villains that they don't do.
And Batman is getting another movie. So I don't know, man. Superman is being a little bit.
Yeah, and is that one they're doing what the Riddler and the Penguin?
I don't know how the villains are this time around. I don't know.
I thought that's what they're doing. They're doing.
It's gonna come out in 2022, I think, next year. But I think Superman is being a little bit disrespected. He's the man. I mean, he's the main guy, supposedly. Oh, I remember what I was gonna say. So the body snatching thing, I didn't think about it for a while. I was just and I was watching with Beth. Beth also didn't think about it. And then I told Beth, well, what happened to the guy? You know, he just stole his body. You know, yeah. he's like this is basically like a possession story, you know?
Yeah, and it's weird, right?
It's like, a little bit creepy. he essentially got possessed.
Yeah. And
it's
so
like
I asked myself, why did they have to do it that way? Like, couldn't they have just have him been like an illusion? Like, I almost feel like they could have pulled that off.
I thought it was ingenious until you think about the demonic possession side of it.
Yeah.
Like, what about the guy that lost his body?
Yeah,
but I think thankfully at the end he gets his body back and he gets like that romantic moment. Oh, that is so infuriating, man. He definitely had a chance to ask her out and get the girl, and he didn't. That guy was an idiot.
He even dressed in a way that she wanted Steve Trevor to dress.
That guy was completely inept. But he got his body back at least, so it's a little bit.
It's a very icky moment in a movie that I keep wondering is like, why did it have to be done that way?
I think they weren't thinking probably that it was going to come out weird, but it does come out weird when you think about it. If you don't think about it, it's okay.
Yeah, anyway. But like to me, as I was watching it in the moment, I was like, oh wait, really?
I didn't think about it right away. I confess, and I was the one that brought it to Beth's attention because she hadn't considered it either.
Well, yeah, I think when I brought it to my girlfriend's, to Lauren's attention too, like it's weird because when you're not often thinking of it in the moment, but to me, I think the reason why it jumped to my attention is that I immediately I came into this movie thinking, oh, he's just gonna be an illusion. Because I feel like that would be very on point to Maxwell Lord's influence on her. And when it wasn't that,
in their defense, they wanted to bring back Chris Pine because he was popular in the first movie, but the problem is he was dead, right? So it was always going to be kind of difficult to bring him back. So they came up with like this far-fetched.
Right. Like I said, I would have almost, as much as I enjoy Chris Pine as Steve Trevor, he is a gem in the first movie. I would have liked this movie have been focused more on Wonder Woman's need for friendship too, and the loss of Etta Candy from probably passing away of old age. That can be a very powerful emotion too, because familial friendships are important for connection, and so it's a big deal. And it's not as strong,
especially.
I think it can be in the context of Wonder Woman.
Maybe, but the first movie was all about their romance. You know, they didn't really talk about her friendship with anybody.
Right, and I feel I would have been so curious to have delved more into that, but maybe we'll get that more in the next movie.
We'll get more in the next movie, man. And if they do a TV show or something, but hopefully they'll do a next movie. And I think they've already confirmed the sequel.
Oh yeah.
But, yeah. Now that I think about it, I want a Man of Steel sequel as well. They got to give Superman some love too.
I thought that there is something in development at least for that.
I don't think there is.
Well, early development at least.
Not for Superman, I don't think. Batman is gonna have his.
Yeah, a Man of Steel sequel. They are actually in May. They were like Henry Cavill is in negotiations to continue playing the role of Superman.
Well, hopefully they'll get that done. But yeah, thanks for watching this, guys, and we had fun talking about Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
Watch the movie. It's a cool movie. All right, I stopped recording.
Cool.
Yeah, it was a fun podcast, guys.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Ian, to go back to Kaguya-sama, you say your favorite is Chika. Mine is Hayasaka.
Totally.